Hi everyone, Anthony Morganti here. Recently, Adobe added several new features to the beta version of Photoshop, and they've added one new feature to the current version of Photoshop. In today's video, we're going to talk about some of these new features. We're going to start out with the beta version of Photoshop, specifically generative fill. Adobe claims they've improved it greatly. They claim that it gives better, more realistic results. So let's see, we're going to work on this image and we're going to add a few things to this image. First of all, I'd like to add a dog. Now, not only do I want to add a dog to the image, I want to have this lady walking the dog. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the lasso tool and I'm going to make a selection from her right hand down to the ground like this and just like that. So I have this selection. Now you'll notice when I've made that selection, the contextual taskbar has a generative fill button. If you don't see the contextual taskbar, go up to Window and down toward the bottom and make sure that it has a check mark next to it. Once you do that, you'll have the contextual taskbar, and once you make a selection like I did with the lasso tool, you'll have this generative fill button. Click on that, and I want to just write dog on leash. And then we'll click generate. Now, those of you not familiar with generative fill, what it's doing is it's actually sending the image and what I want in the image up to Adobe servers. And all of the work is done on Adobe servers. So be aware that if you are using generative fill, they are actually going to be sending your image up to their servers. You may not want that. It's up to you. And here is our first example. When you do this, you'll get 3 different examples. And actually, this one looks pretty good. There's the woman. Her shadow's there. The dog shadow doesn't look too bad. Here's our second example. And here is our third example. So all of those actually look fairly realistic. I think they look pretty good. And that's what they claim they've done, is they've made generative fill give better, more realistic results. And I tend to think that they actually did. So they all look pretty equal to me. But let's, for the sake of argument, say that I like that one. Now I want to add something else to the image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my lasso tool still, and I'm going to select another part of the image. I'm going to select this area right in here. And I'm going to generative fill, and I'm going to, I want 4 penguins. All right, and then we'll click generate. Now again, it's sending the entire image up to Adobe servers, and hopefully it will come back with 4 penguins within that area I selected on the walkway or sidewalk. Now, part of the issue I had with generative fill in the past is often it didn't blend well with the existing image, and they've definitely improved that. You can see how the dog, and now the first example of penguins, look like it blends into the scene pretty well. So I think it does it did a pretty good job. The only thing though, I wrote 4 penguins, and in all examples, it gave me 3. So it sometimes doesn't listen to you. But all of those look pretty good. Let's go with this one. Now I want to do one more thing. One thing about generative fill is whenever you wanted to add a person, a lot of times the person looked horrible. They'd have 3 arms, they'd have 2 heads, they'd have 4 eyes. They'd be really distorted. It really did a poor job adding a person to an image. So that's what we're going to do next. And to do that, instead of using the lasso tool, I'm going to get the rectangular marquee tool. The keyboard shortcut for that is M. And by the way, I have a full list of Photoshop keyboard shortcuts that you could download for free from my website. It's a PDF that you could print at home. I'll have that listed in the description below this video. Now I want to add a man more in the foreground, so I'm going to go right about here. I'm going to make this relatively large. And as a matter of fact, I want to make it a little bigger than that. So I'm going to undo that or get rid of the marching ants by hitting Command D on my Mac. It's Control D on a PC, and we'll go like this, a little bigger. All right. And then we'll go generative fill. And I'm just going to write man. And then we'll generate. And we'll see if it improved, if it renders a person better than it did in the past. As I mentioned, that was something that bugged me a lot. So we'll see, because there were a lot of times that I wanted to add a person to a scene, or I wanted to do something like that. And this one looks okay. But he's got a stick, a walking stick, and then he has what appears to be a leash, and he's walking, looks like two pigeons. So that probably isn't very good. Okay, here's a man. He's distorted. Doesn't look too good. Okay, here's the back of a dude's head. I guess that's all right, but I don't like any of these. So what you can do if you're not familiar with this is you could just click generate again, and it will give you 3 more examples. Now, once it does this, we'll see hopefully if one of these is better. This one would have been okay if he didn't have the walking stick and he didn't have the leash walking pigeons. I think it probably would have been all right. But let's see. Okay, here's a guy with a bike, but the bike doesn't look right. Here's a guy that doesn't look right again. And here's one here, and he looks just creepy to me. So let's just say, though, that I kind of like this one, but the bike is messed up. What you could do, and what is new in this version of generative fill, is you see these 3 little dots right here? If you click on those 3 little dots, you could generate similar. So what it will do is it will use this image as a reference, and it will come up with some similar versions, 3 more, that hopefully are better than this. So we'll see. And my experimentation with generative fill with a person, it still isn't very good in my opinion. It is better though. It just isn't very good. It still kind of messes up. Here's a guy walking penguins. I probably messed it up by having those penguins in there. But this one's a little better. But I could write man jogging. We could try that. So you could write man jogging. You could change your prompt and see if you come up with something better. See what it looks like. But overall, I mean, in the past, if you saw any of my previous videos on generative fill when I was adding a person, quite often they look like mutants. It looked horrible. So this one looks all right. There's something kind of weird going across his shirt here, but you could probably use some one of the remove tools to fix that. This one, his legs look messed up. And this one is okay, but it's kind of messed up above his shoulder here, so it didn't really blend well. But I kind of like that one, but I could still click the 3 dots and I could generate similar, and it will come up with 3 more examples that are similar to this that hopefully will work better. So it is better, but it still isn't perfect when you're trying to generate a person. But I think it has improved quite a bit. And I think it has improved quite a bit when it adds something to the image and needs to blend it with the existing scene. I think that it has improved a lot. Okay, now this one looks pretty good. All right. One of those 2. Probably that one, but take it for what it's worth. That's the kind of the enhancements and improvements with generative fill. They've also improved the background replacement. So what we're going to do is, we're going to take this stock image and I'm going to remove the background by just going to the contextual taskbar and clicking on remove background. Now, once it removes the background, what will happen in the contextual taskbar, I could generate a new background. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to generate that, and I'm going to type in the interior of a library. All right, and then we're going to click generate. And so obviously she's holding books, so I'm going to put her inside of a library, and we'll see what it looks like. And I've been experimenting with this, and this seems to work pretty flawlessly. It works pretty well. Sometimes it doesn't give you exactly what you're looking for in your mind, maybe. But this one is the first time it really messed up. It has kind of looks like a chandelier or something here hanging out in the distance. But that one's not too bad. And that one's not too bad. It's got this weird kind of plant or something coming up here I don't like. But again, you could come up and click these 3 dots and generate similar and see if there's something better that it could come up with. And once it does, we'll see if it's a better image, if it's a better looking image than it was previously. And yeah, that's definitely better there. That one just kind of bothers my eyes for some reason, and I don't care for that one. But let's just say we like this one. Now, if I zoomed in on any of these generative fills, you'll notice that the resolution is rather limited. It doesn't, even though this was a high resolution image, it doesn't give you a high resolution generative fill. I forgot the dimensions of the resolution of the generative fill, but it is like a medium resolution image. what they've done is they haven't given you the option to increase the resolution, but they have given you the option to improve like the quality, enhance the detail. And as you notice, if I hover over this thumbnail of the one that I chose, on the left-hand side, there's this little kind of up arrow thing. And if I hover over it, it says enhance detail. So what you could do is you could click on that and it will enhance the detail of whatever it is you added to the image. In this case, it was the background. You'll also have this if you just do a generative fill like I did on the previous image where I added the dog or added penguins or added the man. You could also do it there. And although I don't really see much of a difference, I suspect that if I actually printed it and then did enhanced detail and then printed a second copy of it, it would look better printed with the second copy. Again, that's something I think that is not something you're going to maybe notice as readily. Hopefully, they give you the option to actually increase the resolution someday, because that's what you actually need. Since most of us are shooting with cameras that are very high in megapixel and they're very high resolution. And when you want to use generative fill for something, you want to add that element with similar resolution to what you're working with to begin with. So that is that. Now, another thing they've added to, and by the way, everything I'm talking about so far has been only in the beta version of Photoshop. Another thing they've added to the beta version of Photoshop is they've integrated Firefly into it. Now I'm going to show you how to use it. To use Firefly in Photoshop, you need to just create a new image. So to do that, go up to File, New, and then I'm just going to go to Photo, and I'm going to use the default Photoshop size. And I'm just going to use a white background in the default settings otherwise, and we'll click Create. Now we have this white background. As a matter of fact, let's fit it to screen, hit Command 0 on my Mac, it's Control 0 on a PC. So I have this. How do you use Firefly? Two different ways. On the contextual taskbar, you could just click Generate Image, and you'll come up with this Generate Image dialog box. Another way you could do it, particularly if you don't like using the contextual taskbar, is over here in the toolbar, you'll have right here, generate an image using a text prompt. You could click right on that. Now, if you don't see that, go up to Edit, down to Toolbar, and then right here, just make sure that this is clicked on. If I click it off, you see how it disappears, and if I click it on, it is there. So make sure that is on. We'll cancel this. And then I'll come in and click there. You get the same contextual taskbar. Now, if you're not familiar with Firefly, it's something that's available on Adobe.com. And if you have Creative Cloud subscription, you could use it to just create an image, either an art image or a photographic image. And you just tell it what you're looking for. So I'm going to put a polar bear in Niagara Falls. If I could spell. All right, we want a photo. If you have a reference image, you wanted to reference a specific image and do something similar, you could do that. You would click here and you could upload your image, or you could choose one that's already there. Now, I'm not going to use a reference image. You could use a specific effect. If you're familiar with Firefly, you know these effects are available on Firefly as well. You can see there's bokeh effects and layered paper effects and so on. We're not going to use any of that. You also could just discover prompts. This might help you, figure out something. But for this example, I just want a polar bear in Niagara Falls. It's going to be a photo. I'm not going to use a reference image, and I'm not going to use an effect. And I'll click Generate. And again, it's going up to Adobe servers. All the heavy lifting is done up there. Now, of course, it's not sending anything from us up there. Maybe our blank image here, or, white piece of paper type image. But I don't see a polar bear in this shot. Do you? No, but we'll go here. And there's a couple polar bears, and that definitely is Niagara Falls. But whatever this structure isn't in Niagara Falls. I can tell you that right now. And here, I don't see polar bears there. So this is the only real image that has polar bears in it. Although even this kind of landing here, this thing here, that's not really in Niagara Falls. So what I could do is one of two things. I could just generate again, or I could click these three dots and generate similar. I'm going to do generate similar because there are polar bears in this image, and I want the polar bears in my shot. So we'll see what it comes up with. And again, this is kind of hit and miss. This tower isn't in Niagara Falls. So you're not going to get real images, obviously. You're going to get, things that aren't necessarily in real life. So you can keep playing around with it. You can keep generating, just hit generate or generate similar and see what you could come up with. Overall, I've never done videos on Firefly because it's not something I necessarily would do. Now, this is probably the more realistic one. This would be on the Canadian side of Niagara Falls, and there are railings like the polar bear theoretically would be walking right towards the railing, right where you'd be standing, and you could go right to this edge of this the Horseshoe Falls. So that's kind of a little more realistic. There is some ground to the left side too, so that's a little more closer to what's real. There is some foliage, more so on the American side, I think, than the Canadian side. But you could see, though, how it's another thing they're claiming with Firefly. By the way, there was Firefly version 1, and I don't know why that's jumping. The Firefly version 1, and they skipped version 2 and went right to version 3. And in version 3, they claim it gives more realistic results. And I definitely think it does. The polar bear looks like a real polar bear, where in the past, it looked more cartoonish, even though you were choosing a photo as opposed to art. So I think that looks pretty good right there. So that's not too bad at all. Now, one more thing I'm going to show you that's in the beta version of Photoshop. And I did a video on this before. There's a new brush in Photoshop. It's called the Adjustment Brush tool. It's in the beta version. What they've done, if we choose that tool, you may remember that the adjustments you had available with the adjustment brush, there was like 8 of them, I think, and they've added more to it. So you have a lot more adjustments that you could do. So if you want to come in and like increase the vibrance of something, you'll get a brush. And they've also, I think, changed it up here where you could actually come in and change some of the brush settings, which wasn't available before. So you could come in and brush, and when you do, you'll get that adjustment layer. And you could come in and increase saturation, like out in here and maybe in here, like that. And the adjustment layer is just a real adjustment layer that you would pick up here in single adjustments. You could just pick the adjustment layer there, or you could use the brush. It's up to you. Comes with a mask, comes with a black mask, so you have to paint in the adjustment with the brush. And so, again, in this beta version of Photoshop, they've added more adjustments that are available, as opposed to, I think initially there were only 8. Now, finally, what they've done is and this is in the current version of Photoshop. I'm going to be showing you it in the beta version, but it is in the current version as well. It has to do with text. And if you go to the type tool, which is right here, and let's say you just, type something here, Niagara Falls, winter, I don't know, something. Type anything, it doesn't really matter. Then you could select all this, and you could come in and you could make it bigger, but not that big. Then we'll get the move tool, move it over here. Go back to our type tool, go to our type here. All right, now we've selected all our type. I want to change the font. The way you would always do it is you could go up here and you could click and you could have all your default fonts. What they've done now is they've made available to you all the fonts that are available on Adobe.com. If you have a Creative Cloud subscription, you could go to Adobe.com and download fonts that aren't already in Photoshop or in any of the other Adobe Creative Cloud apps. You could download these fonts, install them on your computer, and then they'd be available in all the Adobe apps. And they'd be available in other apps as well, because you're actually installing them on your system. What you can do now, though, is from within Photoshop, you could click on More Fonts. And when you do that, you'll have all those fonts that are on Adobe's servers. You could come in here and click them. And if there is one that isn't already in Photoshop, it will automatically download it from the server and install it on your computer. And it will be available in all your apps that use fonts. So you'll be able to do that. So I don't know of any specifically that may not be already available. But you do, like I said, you could just do it and it will automatically do it all in the background. You don't have to worry about anything. It will download the font, install the font on your computer. And as I mentioned, it will be available in all your Adobe Creative Cloud apps. And it will also be available in other apps that use fonts and use specifically the fonts that are on your computer in your system. So that, again, is not only available in the beta version of Photoshop, it's in the current version of Photoshop that is currently available. That's it. That's the new stuff that is in Photoshop. Thank you, everyone who watches my videos. I really do appreciate it. Talk to you guys soon.